10 seconds. Everybody better have an answer when I call you. Middle. All right. So let me hear a characteristic of sorts. Thank you, sir. Go for it. Louder.
The Chesapeake region was able to sustain a slave population with ever.
Oh, okay. So in the Chesapeake and then also the southern colonies, we see a slave population. Good. I agree. I agree. Nice. Ashley, what else we got? What? Slavery. Where? How? Why? Slavery in the South? Okay. Cool. Ruby, what else?
But the colonies that were self-governing.
Oh, okay. So there are elements of that's important. Self-governance in all three regions. Good. Alex?
They all had slavery, right? Or some places more than others?
Sure, they all had slavery, but clearly in some places more than others. Cortez?
Only similarities or
Whatever.
I feel like growing nationalism and identity.
Cool. So there's a growing colonial, that's today's big topic. A growing identity that is more British American than just British. We kind of started that process Thursday with self-governance, as Ruby pointed out, and salutary neglect. But there's this growing identity that is separate from that of Europe. Good. Good, good, good. Catherine, what else we got that is either all the colonies or shared by one colony or region?
Oh, I took the space thing out for the diversity and tolerance.
Diversity and tolerance where?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, and in general, which region? Middle colonies. Yeah, way more diversity, way more tolerance in the middle. Good job. We clear there?
Yeah.
Good. Jahira, one more thing.
Some religious tolerance.
Good. That's across the board, right? In general, there's some religious tolerance unless you are in early Massachusetts. In which case, you're not. Yes?
Rhode Island was a runaway place
Yeah.
for criminals and wanted people.
So, specifically, Rhode Island is more so that dumping ground for the undesirables elsewhere. Good. No way, you got something else?
Didn't New England have like higher
Yes.
birth rates?
Yes, New England has longer life, higher standard of living, lower mortality, bigger families, absolutely. So those are all characteristics you guys should be able to get your mind around. There's 50 more we could list. We're not going to. But those are those the things that make each colonial region unique, and some of those blanket statements that makes the colonies themselves unique, which I heard from Ruby, from Chris, the slavery idea as well. Good. Good, good. Everybody have a nice weekend?
No.
Why not?
No.
What? Because it ended, I agree.
I was missing you, that's
You missed me? Good. Makes one of us. So, prompt is here. Jonathan, you read first, please?
Evaluate the impact of the Great Awakening and Enlightenment on the development of colonial identity.
Cool. Evaluate the impact of the Great Awakening and Enlightenment on colonial identity. To Chris's point, by the end of today, we'll be able to really get our minds around this idea of a British American identity, which we're going over, we're writing about on Wednesday. I'm going to introduce the. We good? I'm going to introduce the LEQ format on Wednesday. We'll look at the rubric. We'll look at what's required. You'll do a little short reading and prep between now and Wednesday. And then that way, come Thursday, when you go to actually write something, I'll have given you the support you need to actually write. But we'll look at how the Great Awakening impacts this identity of the colonists, who they are, and how the Enlightenment impacts the identity of the colonists and who they are, what they believe. So let me start with a question for you. Is there anything more different than religion and science?
Yeah.
You want to go down this path with me? Let's go. Talk to me.
They're both different.
They're both different.
Wow.
No, but I'll explain why. I'll explain why. No, I'll explain why. Like, science is like more like these logical reasoning explaining to people. Like with Mr. Banks told us the hypothesis. You have to observe and then test it.
Sure. Get your point. Let's find my phone out.
And then it's like mainly stating a point and then making people believe it.
So So you're proving my point for me. I asked you, is there anything more different?
Oh,
Yeah,
Is there any two things more
So
different?
the whole class got it. He's like, no, I'm going to answer this question. No,
no, my bad.
So I'm asking you, let me try this again without this. Is there anything more different than religion and science? Black and white, sure, they're both colors.
Race.
Or one's the opposite. Race, we're all humans.
Actually, they're not colors.
Religion and politics are the. Ooh, wait till we get to period 4. We'll read Alexis de Tocqueville, and he will tell you, religion is the foremost political institution in the United States, which I'd argue is probably still true. Why has every single president been Christian?
Oh.
For real?
Obama.
Obama? Yeah. Oh, I mean, Obama was an African Muslim if you listen to Fox News, but not actually true. So, is there anything more different than religion and science? Religion is asking somebody to believe something they cannot see or prove. Religion, I'll say it again, is asking people to believe something they cannot see, nor can they prove. That's called faith. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, actually what it is. That's religion. Science, according to our friend here, as well as Mr. Banks, is creating a hypothesis and testing the hypothesis until you can prove it as fact. Find me something that's more different than those two things. Religion is the belief in what you cannot see or prove. Science is the belief in only what you can see and prove. Mind-blowing. And yet we have here, for today's conversation, a religious movement and a scientific movement. Again, polar opposite ideas from their foundation that are both gonna get for us very similar results. They're going to have the exact same type of effect on the colonists, despite the fact that they are very different types of movements. Towards God, away from God. Towards faith, away from faith. So my job today is to get you to a point where you realize why they're similar, even though we just all agreed, and he helped prove it for us, that they're incredibly different, fundamentally speaking. Here's your outline. Today we'll quickly run through economic and infrastructural development. We'll hit real quick social and cultural development, talk about some colonial education. We'll talk about religious development, and then we'll end with the two important pieces, the Great Awakening and the Enlightenment. Now, Josue, if I tell you this is the first Great Awakening, what am I implying?
That there's another one in the future.
Multiple. There might be one more. Maybe there's 30 Great Awakenings. Who knows? Josue, how many times have you woken up? Am I talking about like actual waking up or waking up?
Like being woke or being...
I don't know. What am I asking? Who knows? Who knows? So, these two things are really the foundation of today once I hit the social, culture, and all that. Important word going forward is infrastructure. Christoph, what does infrastructure mean, sir?
I actually have no idea.
That's okay. It's a new word. No biggie. Eli, what does infrastructure mean?
I have no idea.
Excellent. Hilda,
I don't know.
you don't know? Jerry?
Isn't it like the outline?
Kind of.
Is it like the buildings, they're not just the buildings.
Because of structure?
Yeah.
What does infra mean? Or intra?
Like the first modifications, like the first.
Take a shot.
Isn't it like the inner workings and the foundations of like a system?
What kind of system?
Well, like in this context, it's like a political system or like a state-run system.
Not quite, but it could be. Political infrastructure exists. I'm talking about like actual physical infrastructure.
Oh, foundation, like what keeps it like holding?
What's it?
Like, what holds the building? Like, the infrastructure.
Like a rubber band? Like
No.
you hold the building? What are you talking
No,
about?
like the top
Foundation.
Infrastructure is very simple. It's how all of, like to structure how our society is connected. Roads, bridges, yeah. Today, freeways, highways, airports, air travel. There, to your point, there's an infrastructure to the internet, how information travels. So we'll talk about infrastructural development and how the colonies become to get a little more interconnected. Cool? All right, let's get started. So your first question asks you, again, I'm hitting this on purpose because it's going to matter later. even though in theory this should be reviewed, this idea of economic development based on geography. So looking at our geography, it's very clear that our colonial regions have different economic identities. In the South, the Deep South, they're growing indigo, rice, sugar. They are not, this is an important thing because the College Board hates when you get this wrong, they are not growing cotton. They are not growing cotton. Elian, what are they growing? Not cotton. Good job. Cotton will become a thing in about 1800. So the very beginning of period 4, we'll look at some numbers that say slavery is declining. Maybe we are growing this country. Oh, no, never mind, cotton. So no cotton yet. No cotton yet. No cotton yet. I'm glad you learned about something in multi class. That's nice. So it's important we understand that when it's the colonies, before it's the United States, when it's just a colonial situation, tobacco, sugar, indigo, rice. Important to understand that farther north, we see this breadbasket-y idea, grain, wheat, cattle, food crops, and up north, timber, fishing, shipbuilding, etc. So I just want to keep hitting this idea that regionally speaking, the economies are different based on geography. Based on geography. Now, the colonies aren't going to become manufacturing type of economies. They aren't. Why not? Mercantilism. Thank you. There's our answer. It's that simple. Our job is to provide what to England? Raw materials. And we're going to buy back manufactured goods. Nicely done, guys. So we're not going to become an industrialized society for a long time. So we're more of a raw material type of production economy. However, there are some examples of early manufacturing. But I want to point out that early manufacturing in the colonies is for local sale, not export. So Brett's going to make his stuff for Brett's little town, not to go sell to England. Because we're not on that scale of manufacturing, right? Cortez is going to make his stuff for trade in his little community, not to go sell to stuff far away. So we do have some early manufacturing. I'll give you examples, but it's for local trade, not export. Because that, as Chris pointed out, would defeat the purpose of mercantilism. The examples I have of early manufacturing are rum. Rum's not a raw material. You can't grow rum. Rum doesn't exist in nature. So that's an example of colonial manufacturing. Now, rum is often used as currency in the colonies because Americans are alcoholic. So in the absence of a formal paper currency, people are trading rum for the things they need. Beaver hats. I can see Josue as a maker of beaver hats. You see that, Josue? What do I see you as? Do you want me to answer that question? I don't think you do. So, moral of the story, other things, lumber. Lumber, if you cut trees down and turn it into usable wood, that's a manufacturing process. And also some iron ore. Some pulling of iron out of the ground and turning it into a usable metal. But again, so that while there is some examples of manufacturing, it's more for local trade than it is export. However, the one thing that is exported, and I'm highlighting this because it may or may not be on the test because I was writing it this morning, who knows, is because of mercantilism, shipbuilding becomes a really important manufacturing segment. I talked about it last Thursday, but shipbuilding, because we're going to have to trade British goods in the British Empire on British ships. In New England, they begin, in New England, where's that? In New England, good job. They begin building a lot of ships because they know they don't have a lot of other exports to export. They don't have cash crops and the like, and they have a lot of wood. So that supports this mercantilist idea. However, there is a growing amount of tension between the colonists and Great Britain because the colonists want to trade with other countries, and Great Britain's not going to allow that. The Americans think like, look, we're kind of out here on our own. We're way the hell over here. You're way over there. Why can't we trade with the West Indies, with Africa, with Spain on our own? Yes, ma'am.
Wasn't it depending on where you were that depended on where you could trade between the ports?
To an extent, yes. What do you mean?
Because weren't there like only certain ports that you could go through to like import your goods?
Absolutely, right? You need to be close to a large enough harbor or port to get your stuff in and out, like a Philadelphia, like a Boston, like a Charleston, like a New York City. which is why we see most of the population being really centered around those ports. Great question. Great question. So there is growing conflict with the colonists that kind of wanted to trade with anybody, and England constraining them to trade just with them. So what do the colonists do about this? No, not even close. Yeah, they just smuggle a bunch of stuff. What laws enforce this idea? The Navigation Acts of 60-63. One response to that could be that the Navigation Acts are largely ignored. Problem solved. Cool? So that's the economy. It's pretty basic. Where you are depends on what raw materials you can provide to mother country. And in general, you're just providing the mother country those raw materials and buying back manufactured goods. Now, this relationship, funny enough, is going to continue the same way even after the Revolutionary War. We're going to get our independence and be like, yeah, we're big, we're bad, we're America. And realize we have no manufacturing, we have no industrialism, so we're like, yeah, freedom. England, can we keep buying that stuff that we used to buy from you? We'll keep providing the raw materials. So we don't see America become economically independent until the market revolution of the 18 teens and 1820s. So for the first 40 years of American history, we're still heavily reliant on Great Britain for our manufactured goods, even after we fought a war and became independent from them. Which supports my argument that whether for people on a macro-micro level or for a society, there's different kinds of freedom. You can be politically free, which you could argue that colonists are kind of already politically free. You can be socially free, right? And then you can be economically free, right? I'm economically free. I pay my own bills. Right? I'm not socially free. I gotta ask my wife for permission to do everything. Just kidding, guys. It's a joke. Smile. So that's the economic situation in the picture. Now, we have a ton of problems with transportation in the colonies. Why? No, I'm talking about intercolonial transportation, this infrastructure idea. There's no highways. Where are we going to take our cars? Huh! There's no cars. So, no roads. So because we are inhabiting a previously underdeveloped society, because the natives don't look at the world the way Western Europeans look at it, the natives aren't there to tear down forests, to build roads. They're there to just live within nature. Another test question. It is important that we understand that you have to start from scratch infrastructure-wise. If you want to get from point A to point B, you got to tear down a bunch of trees, flatten a road, right? Put gravel on it, figure something out. Infrastructure is a big problem. There's an important effect of that. So transportation is incredibly slow. It was easier to get from Boston to England over sea, which is thousands of miles, than it was to get from Boston to Virginia over land. It was easier to get all the way across the ocean than to just get 4 colonies down to Virginia from Boston. That's crazy. But what kind of relationship is that going to create between the colonies and England?
Independent.
How so?
Because they're helping each other build roads.
Are they? If it's easier to just get your stuff and sell it in England, what's the point of even trying to sell it to go to Virginia? Think about that for a second. Go.
That wouldn't create like a, not isolation.
Yeah. Keep going. So,
Oh no.
like colonial isolation. Yeah, so these little, at the beginning especially, these little colonial hubs are very isolated. It's like me in Virginia and England. Him in Massachusetts and England. Right. Him in New Hampshire, obviously, and England. Right. Him in South Carolina and England. So we don't see that a lot of colonial unity, but it's more isolationist. Thank you for that point, Kat. It's more isolationist because it's easier to just get your stuff to and from England than worry about connecting each other. Which is why at the beginning, for a long time, they see themselves as Virginians, as New Englanders, as South Carolinians instead of as American colonists. So the transportation's terrible. The roads that connect the colonies, for the most part, especially early, are terrible. We will have a huge transportation revolution with canals and steamboats and turnpikes, fancy word for highways, in the 18 teens and 20s. But until then, it's still very hard to get from point A to point B in the colonies. What we do see because of that, though, is importance. It starts building this American colonial identity as well. And it's that if you needed to go from colony to colony, or even in a colony from city to city, you had one way to go, and chances are there was one place to stop on the way if you had to stay overnight. Whether you're rich, middle class, poor, German, Scots-Irish, British, it didn't matter. You had to take the same route and stay in the same places. And what that creates is this new American cultural idea of taverns. Everybody ever heard of tavern before? It's a fancy word for bar. It's a fancy word for bar where you can also stay the night. It's a great bar idea. Just have fun and then pass out upstairs. Where various groups are on the road together and they're staying at these taverns, which become really cool public meeting places for ideas to spread. And what this does, though, well, it creates a whole generation of American alcoholics, which is still important today. But what it does is it allows for a real blurring of social lines. That if you're rich, guess what? This is your option. If you're poor, this is your option. If you're middle class, this is your option. If you're British, you're staying here. If you're German, you're staying here. So what it does, as we start spreading out with the colonies, is we're not spreading out rich ideals or lower class ideals. We're spreading out just ideas and politics and sharing of thought over drinks, which is as American as it gets, throughout the frontier and connecting the colonies. So it really does allow for this blurring, as I pointed out, of cultural lines and social class lines. Yes, ma'am?
That's kind of my semi-question. Did it ever create like problems due to the different social classes?
I'm sure it did, because that always creates problems. But in general, what we see is much more of a compacted social triangle, where those that are traveling are really traveling in the same kind of idea. They're all in the same boat, right? Like I can tell you that you're rich and I'm poor, but if we're traveling on the same crappy road and staying at the same tavern, then I'm no better than you and you're no better than me. Yes, sir. Sure, by all means. So this is where especially American political thought starts disseminating itself is through taverns. Go figure. But it's important to understand that these transportation struggles are going to keep the colonists economically dependent on Great Britain. Like, is there enough stuff in the colonies to sustain themselves? Yes. Economically, do they need Great Britain? No. But they would need each other, and they don't have each other because of transportation problems. Because if it's easier for me to sell my tobacco to England, then why am I going to put a whole bunch of effort to get it to New Hampshire? Why am I going to put a whole bunch of effort to get it to South Carolina? If I could just sell my stuff to England and buy stuff from England. So what it is the convenience of Great Britain keeps us economically dependent on them. Now, society and culture-wise, American social structure looks similar to that of Europe with some slight changes. Some small changes. So this part looks a lot like Europe, but I'm going to point out a couple differences. So there are more wealthy landowners in some places in America, specifically the South, because that's where wealthy landowners exist because of slavery and cash crops. But in general, this class is the biggest class in America, these small farmers. Right? Yes, there are wealthy landowners who take up all the good land in places like Virginia and South Carolina. They're growing a ton of cash crops. But in general, it's the small farmers who make up the majority of society. There's another term for these that you're going to have to know going forward, so it should be in your notes. They're going to be called yeoman farmers. Y-E-O-M-A-N. Or a class of people called the yeomanry that are loved by political members like Thomas Jefferson. These don't really appeal to this class of people. This not rich plantation owner, but this lower to middle class farmer who just farms for his own things and doesn't try to get super rich off of it. These are going to be called, another word for it you should know, subsistence farming. Subsistence farming. Any ideas what that means? Subsistence farming? Take a shot.
It's when you like, well, subsistence is like when you. Subsistence farming is like when you farm for your own things so you can maintain yourself.
Subsistence, if this probably helps everybody, non-cash crop. Yeah, so I'm going to farm the stuff I need. I'm going to farm my food, I'm going to farm my crops. And if I have any surplus, I'll trade with my neighbors for other stuff that I need and they might need. So it's not farming one specific crop to get super rich, but rather farming to survive. So that's the huge class of American people. We do have some merchants or traders, or those that are engaging in like buying and selling of goods. Some crafts people, like Josue and his beaver hats. That's a craft. He makes very fine, top-notch beaver hats. His hair kind of looks like a beaver hat, actually. Shake your head around a little bit. Yeah, it's like that. And then, of course, at the bottom of colonial society are slaves in much greater numbers in the south than the north. Right? There are some regional differences to this, but in general, it looks kind of like this wherever you are. North, middle, south, top, middle, lower. Cool? A difference from Europe, however, other than this huge reliance on farming, which is different than Europe because there's more land here than in Europe, so there's more farmers here than in Europe, one of the appeals. And remember the number of farmers last class I told you? The percentage of farmers in the colonies? 80. 80% of farmers. There's more opportunity in the American colonies. There's more opportunity because opportunity is not based on heredity, not based on who you're born to, but based on what you do when you're born. That's different than Europe, when in general, if you're born rich, you die rich. If you're born poor, you die poor. Right? That's much different. There's no laws of primogeniture on land. There is more opportunity to spread out. There's a frontier in America for people to go try their luck on. There's no frontier in Europe. So your opportunity is much more free for success economically than it would be in Europe. However, gender roles, whether it's economic or political, are much like Europe in that men play a much more dominant role. Whether they're rich men like landowners or they're poor men like laborers, they still play a more dominant role in society. And women have limited to no political rights. And we'll talk about the beginnings of that changing today, actually. Women get involved in a religious way they wouldn't have been able to otherwise. All right. Culturally, it's going to look a lot like Europe or not like Europe based on where you are. If you are in the urban cities, that I mentioned earlier, give me some of the urban cities in the colonies. New York, Boston, Philadelphia. Remember, Pennsylvania is a colony, Philadelphia is a city, and there's a fourth, Charleston. So if you're one of those big cities, it's going to look, architecture-wise, like a cheap, crappy version of Europe. Which makes sense. That's where all the European stuff's coming into. Right? European-type libraries, European-type buildings, European-style churches. It's going to look a lot like a crappier, run-down version of Europe. Because you're far from Europe and you don't have access to the materials they have. But if you are on the frontier or in more rural society, it doesn't look anything like Europe and you're living more of a log cabin existence. Again, showing a difference in America between urban and rural. Right? Urban looks a little more like Europe. Rural is much more American log cabin frontier. But there is a growing amount of literature, of literacy in the colonies that's worth noting out. It's only going to get bigger with today's lecture. We see, like here, this is an example of a newspaper in Boston. So it's called the Boston Newsletter. We see newspapers based on towns growing significantly. We see colonists becoming literate at a rate not seen in Europe. Right? In general, in Europe, the lower classes don't get to read or don't know how to read. In the colonists, the lower classes, the middle class, and the upper classes all read. We see a growing publishing class. Like religious sermons are being published for people to read. Political essays, nonfiction books, short stories. The colonies read a lot. Because there's not a lot of other entertainment to have. And then one great example of literature that I should point out to you that you should know is Benjamin Franklin's role in publishing Poor Richard's Almanac. It's like an early version of like a collection of short stories and essays and thoughts on the world around them. Benjamin Franklin is widely considered the father of the American Enlightenment for contributions like this that should encourage people to get literate and get informed around them. It's very cool. You can buy a copy today if you really want to. So we do see, from a cultural and arts perspective, a growing breed of literacy in the colonies. Now, education is going to start slowly in the colonies and then bloom as we go, specifically in the region of New England. Education is limited to wealthy males early, while females are more taught domestic chores and raising a household and cooking and cleaning and so forth. Sorry, ladies. Aren't you glad you're in school now? So anytime, I know you're not. Anytime you get frustrated with school, just think of what a privilege it is that we all get to get educated and we don't have to pay for it. Life is good. Life is good. However, in the colonies, especially early, there's a lot of really good colleges. You guys ever heard of Harvard? Yeah. Yale, Princeton, was King's College, later becomes Princeton. All of these colleges are created early in the colonies to train pastors, to train preachers, to train those that are going to get involved in the clergy, to run churches. So a lot of these early, now famous universities are established today as well for theological reasons. However, regionally speaking, we do see some beginnings of public education, specifically in New England. Shocking. New England's all about the common good. I firmly believe that the common good implies that we're all educated. Right? I can make better decisions for society if I'm educated. So can Josue. So can Hector. Right? So can Ashley. If we're all educated, we're going to make more educated decisions for the common good. Towns that have over 50 approximately families, the towns are required to have a primary school, elementary school. So the whole community is going to pay a little bit in taxes. They're going to create a little building, hire a teacher that's going to teach kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, and they'll get educated. Towns that are bigger, that have over 100 families, they require grammar schools as well. So the equivalent today of like middle school. So the bigger the community in New England, the more education that it has, and it's taxpayer supported. So those that live in the community pay a little bit of taxes, it supports the school. Much like our model today. Much like our model today. In the middle colonies, the education was more based on church inclusion or private education. In the southern colonies, there's very, very limited. Because of the agricultural lifestyle. Right? Because there's agriculture, everybody goes on the farm when the sun comes up, you work till the sun goes down, there's no time for school. Unless you're one of those kids of the rich plantation owners that has a lot of slaves, in which case, likely you're educated, but it's private. So the lifestyle in the South doesn't really allow for education as well. Sure, we can go with that, or we can not make giant generalizations about hardworking farmers in America, but hey, you do you, my man. You do you. Cool. So, the last piece is, before I get into the actual Great Awakening Enlightenment, is diversity. I talked about this last week, so it should be a quick review. So just talk real quick with the person next to you, take a minute and a half or two, identify for the question, why? Why are the colonies more diverse than anywhere in Europe? And what impact does that have on colonial development? Why is there more diversity, and what is the effect of that diversity? Take 2.5 minutes, and then we will break it down as a class. Go.
People want to have more rights. Why is it more diverse? Colonies are
People migrate. People are trying to like leave. Their heart conditions are low. We're trying to go
Like you said, the colonies are more diverse than in Europe. People like you said that if you were born in them or you're they would find and change that to more colonies try to upgrade your land. Look for opportunities for their families.
Make it quick. Another minute. I'm going to talk about it and respond to the question. Why is there more diversity? Why? Why does the diversity exist, and what is the effect of it?
it's diverse? Because Europe, if you were born poor, you stayed poor, so people wanted to change that. That's when they went to the colonies to try to build wealth.
That's when they started spreading going about their own life, right?
Yeah, good work. All right, can we get your eyes up here for me, please? Talk to me, Kelly. Why? Why is there so much diversity? What? Sure, that's part of it. So part of the diversity is built on forced migration. Just forced coexistence of black and white. Sure. Slain, why else? Why else is there diversity?
Well, when they were talking about how it's some colonies or in the frontiers, more people got there for
Okay.
land.
Yeah, because there's land, and there's not land elsewhere in Europe, there's opportunity people come. Okay, cool. Cool, what else? Okay, maybe there's diversity because, not the religious freedom point, but because there's various reasons people are coming. There's various pull factors, whether it's religious or economic or political or social. Since there's a variety of reasons they're coming, there's a variety of people that come. That's reasonable. I like that. Hilda, what else?
People went there like trying to gain wealth from their hometown. So like, if you were like born poor somewhere else and like you were to die there poor, but if you were to move like to the colonies, there would be a chance to gain wealth.
Cool. So that point, Dukes don't immigrate. The rich in Europe's not coming, so whoever's left over might be coming over, and that breeds diversity. Now, what impact might that have on colonial development, Noé? Second part of that question. What impact will this diversity have on colonial development?
It would make it like harder to tell what an American is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe it blurs what an American is. I like that. Josue, I heard a good word from you. I heard a good word from you in this conversation. What else might be the impact of this diversity on colonial development? Tolerance, yeah. All right, when you put a bunch of people living in one place and they shared struggle, it breeds tolerance. It does. And that's my next point. Go. There it goes. So, this map shows us colonial religion. Where do you see, and the very light yellow is Anglican, the Church of England. This slightly darker yellow is Presbyterian. The blue is Lutheran. The red is Congregational. And then these little like black, red, and green squares or triangles are other kinds of churches. So take a look. Where do you see religious tolerance and diversity? New Jersey, where else? Pennsylvania, New York. What are those three things? Middle colonies, where there's more diversity. Yeah. Maryland, you see a lot of Roman Catholics. What did Maryland have early in their existence? The Maryland Act of Toleration. That was created a tolerance towards Catholics. So it's not surprising to me that we see all the religious diversity here. Of course, these guys are also part of the Church of England because they didn't come for religious reasons. There was no reason to break up with the Church of England. Nobody up here is from the Church of England. Why? Because they left the Church of England to come. So it's important we understand that diversity in the colonies is really bred by where you are and what you're doing. Here's a quote by a visitor to Pennsylvania, of all places, one of the most tolerant and diverse places, in 1750, where he says, we find there, in Pennsylvania, Lutherans, Reformed, Catholics, Quakers, Mennonists, Anabaptists, herd hunters, Moravian Brethren, Pietists, Seventh-day Baptists, Dunkers, Presbyterians, Jews, Mohammedans, pagans, Muslims, atheists, Jews, Christians. Yeah. So there in Pennsylvania is all of this religious tolerance and diversity, which is crazy. Especially, again, for the most part, all of these things are different kinds of Christian. Just like I told you that it's very diverse racially, I told you that last week, by 1700 standards, not our standards. What did I say? It was all different kinds of, different flavors of white, yeah. So this is just different flavors of Jesus. for the most part. So it's very diverse and tolerant by that century's standards, not by our standards, but still important to put it in the proper historical context that it's diverse for its time. And a lot of that diversity is driven by this first Great Awakening. Check my time. We're golden. Perfect. So a lot of this diversity is fueled by the first Great Awakening. So the two words you should know for the first Great Awakening are here. Evangelism and revivalism. The thing of evangelism is it's not enough to simply be religious for yourself. You also have a duty to convert more people to think like you and to join your cool religious club. To evangelize, to go spread the good word. What does it mean to revive something? Who said Jehovah's Witness? Yeah, same idea, right? Going door to door, spreading their beliefs. Absolutely. What does it mean to revive something?
To bring back.
To bring back or to make alive again? So that's what it is here. Revivalism is going to try to make church more exciting, more alive, more personal. It's going to make church and religion sexier. Not actually sexier, but I'll use that term a lot for things like, we'll talk about like legislation and things that are like, is it exciting and flashy, or is it boring and dry? So the idea here is you're trying to make religion more exciting and flashy and personal and connected and upbeat. Who goes to church now? Any of you? What happens when you go to church this way? You praise the Lord. Show me how. Yeah. What if you went to church on a Sunday morning? Go to church on Sundays? I don't make any assumptions, you know. What if you go to church and the preacher just stood in front of you and read the Bible? Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, there was God. God was lonely, so he made some animals and Adam and Eve. Boring. I'm sure you've had, how many of you have had teachers that do that? Read off the slides. That speak in a very low, boring tone. I may not be a great teacher, but at the very least, I know enough stuff that I'm not standing here reading off the slide, and I try to make things entertaining and a little more engaging.
You're the best.
No, I appreciate that, Luis. It means a lot coming from you. So that's the first Great Awakening. But more important than that part is it's going to appeal to the idea that you can save yourself. You can save yourself. You might be past saving. You can save yourself. You can save yourself. You can save yourself. Because you can create a personal relationship with God rather than relying on the clergy, the guy in charge of church, to tell you what's right and wrong. It's an appeal to emotion, to people's excitement, and their emotions, not all good, but good and bad emotions, rather than simply appealing to their intellect, what the Bible says. What does it mean? Let's get excited about it. The two names you have to know, we'll look at text from both of them. Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield. I know it looks like Whitefield. It's pronounced Whitfield. If you pronounce it Whitefield, I won't care because it means you remember who it was. That'd be good enough for me. Beggars can't be choosers. So what it does, though, is it changes traditional religion and kind of flips it on its head. Look at the picture. Where is he preaching? Where? Like that, yes. Outdoors. He's, yes, where? Forward, straight. Yes. He's not preaching sideways at you. Yes, he's preaching forward, straight, outdoors. Look at the picture. Who's out there with him? Men, women. Do we see rich people?
Unbelievers. Yeah.
Do we see poor people?
Yeah.
We see dogs.
Oh, you!
We see old people. We see women. We see children. And they're outdoors. Does this look like traditional British Church of England church to you? No, and that's the idea. So what it's going to do is cause a decline, this is important, in the traditional type of Christianities. Congregationalists, so like the Puritans. A decline in their membership. A decline in the Quakers, who were very, very strict and rigid and structured and traditional. A decline in the Church of England, which is very old and traditional, boring. And an increase in the more emotional types of Christianity. Presbyterianism, Baptists, Methodists. So don't worry so much about the denominations, just worry that it shows a split in the traditional old school style of church and a new, more exciting style of church. And that's going to cause a conflict between the old lights and the new lights. The traditionalists versus the modernists. And just wait and see how many times I bring up that conflict this year. Traditionalists versus modernists. Old school versus new school. Conservative versus liberal. Keep it the same versus change it up. Yeah, old, new. Old heads, new heads. Like hip-hop. New hip-hop's terrible. I'm an old light. I'm an old light.
Mr. Banks likes to do.
Good for him. I swear to God, man, if I hear his name one more time in his class, I'm going to send you to Mr. Banks' class. You remember no more science.
No, don't do that to him.
What?
He left because of you.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
He left because of us. He literally left because of y'all. Oh my God,
Now, other impacts, increase in education for clergy, for pastors, training more preachers. But more importantly, we see here who looks better than everybody else. I mean, of the people that are going together. No. Everybody's in the same outdoor, listening to the same sermon. Nobody needs to be special or dressed up. We see the acceptance of Native Americans, of African Americans, and conversions. The idea that if you don't need to be in a traditional church, all you have to do is believe in salvation, then we can include everybody under this tent, so to speak. And we see women being granted the right to vote in church, speak in church, and get involved in church matters. So the First Great Awakening is one of the first examples of women playing a more pivotal role in societal development. Cool, but you see that it even shows there's mainstream society. There's a big traditional-looking building back there, far away, and here they are out in the woods. It's like the first outdoor rave. Right? That's wild. That's wild. Cool. So jump for me, please, into Edwards' text. Sinners in the hands of an angry God. I don't need you to answer anything yet. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to just read it, and then we'll talk about what are some of the main ideas and what is he appealing to. Then we'll read Whitfield's as well, and then we'll just, at the bottom, compare the two. All right? So 5, just to read and understand some big ideas. Read. Time's ticking. On your own. What's his big idea? What does he appeal to? About 90 seconds left. All right, so I'm going to ask you a pretty specific question that I want you to have a pretty specific answer to. I'll ask the question first, and I'll pick on somebody to answer. So don't answer out loud. Calm yourself. What does Edwards appeal to in his sermon? I'll ask you, what does Edwards appeal to in his sermon? So think about that for a second. What is he appealing to? Let me hear for, and if you don't know, it's no big deal, but just think about it. Ziri, I'm going to start with you. What is he appealing to?
I don't know. I just one thing comes up in my mind is hell.
Hell. Okay, cool. You're on the right track. Let's try this. You're in church now. Are you ready? Are you ready? For Pastor Witch? There is a dreadful pit of the glowing flames of the wrath of God. There is hell's wide, gaping mouth open, and you have nothing to stand upon, nor anything to take hold of. There is nothing between you and hell but air. Nothing. You and hell but air. It is only the power and mere pleasure of God that holds you up. What am I appealing to? Oh, okay. All right. You're right there. You're there. You're there. Louisa, what am I appealing to?
Yeah, I was thinking what she said.
Okay.
It's kind of like you want people to convert.
Okay. But what is he using to get them to convert? Go.
When I took it, sounds like you're saying everyone's destined to go to hell.
You're going to hell unless God saves you, Josue. There's nothing between you and hell but God's little fingers holding you up. You want to piss that guy off? You better not, because he will just drop your ass straight into hell. Josue, What's he appealing to? Fear! Thank you! He's appealing to people's fear. Oh my God! If I don't do what God wants, I am going to be dropped by God's little fingers into, straight up, the dreadful pit of the glowing flames of the wrath of God. I'm walking out of that church like, God damn, no, not God. I'm walking out of church. Exactly. Because when you have in your head, like, oh, I'm this close to hell, and if I so much as look at God the wrong way. But who does he put the responsibility on for their actions? The individual. The individual is tasked with creating their own actions that will save them from hell. Is he saying the church is going to save you? Your pastor is going to save you? You read in the Bible? No. It's your actions that will save you or condemn you to the dreadful pit of the growing flames of the wrath of God. But that's unique, because think about that. And I'm sorry to yell at you, Azuri. I'm sorry to yell at you. I'm not sorry to yell at you. What this does is it empowers people to take responsibility for their own actions. It's my actions. It's me and God and this air that's holding me away from hell. And that's all that's keeping me in or out of hell. So while yes, he's appealing to fear, it also is very empowering to know that it's your own actions that will determine what it is you do in the future. Whereas previously, religion was based on the idea of predestination. God already knows if you're going to hell or not, so screw it. Cool. Read the next one. It's a little different, very different emotional appeal, but there's a commonality there. It's a little shorter. I'm going to give you 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Read it on your own. Go. It's a two-way street as opposed to having a church and do this democratization. Read. Yeah. Hell no. Whoa. We'll have time to chat. One more minute, at least. One more minute, please, crafting your own response. Not everybody's done until that time. Respect the conversation. I'm sorry, so I can be quieter? Ah, deal. Should we be louder? It's her fault? All right, eyes up. Eyes up, eyes up. Let's talk to Jenry. How is Whitfield's perspective different? You hear me shouting?
Yeah, my kids, they're, I told them to watch out for the wrath of God.
Yeah.
They're, they got a little like, oh my God, who's that?
Why is he so angry?
Yeah, I'm like, because the text is angry, that's why.
Yeah, because he's just... Hi, Josue! The two fingers of God are dangling you and your giant hair over the pits of hell. And he ain't got that strong of fingers. Hey, you're a big man. Eyes over on Jeremy, please. How is Whitfield different?
He's making God's image seem as like a kind person.
Sure.
That will answer to one's prayers if you ask for.
Absolutely. But who does he put the responsibility on to go ask for help?
Individuals themselves.
The individual. So in both cases, one is obviously more positive, like, hey, if you need support, like, go talk to God. He points out, you don't need to have the best words. When your kids come talk to you, they don't have the finest words. They're not the most educated. They're not the clergy. Treat God like a father. So obviously this is built more on he's trying to appeal to warmth and parenthood versus fear and intimidation. But in both cases, this is the big key, or how are they similar? How do they both reflect the ideals of the Great Awakening? In both cases, they reflect touchdown. Individualism. Making your own decisions. Being accountable for your own relationship with God. That's key. Because prior to this movement, everybody looked to the church for their answers. Now it's more about the individual. So the big key term I want you to have here is the democratization of religion. That needs to be in your notes. The democratization of religion. Because now, if you want to go to whatever church you want to go to that church. You don't like your church, go find a new one. You don't like your pastor, go get screamed at by Jonathan Edwards. You get scared, go get consoled by George Whitfield. So this democratization of religion allows for individuals, this is the key term, guys, to question the established authority of religion. Because now we're not doing things the way we always have. We're not doing things the traditionalist way. We are questioning the established authority and therefore opening up new opportunities and avenues to worship. That's key. Because when I start giving you options in one aspect of your life, what do you want next? More what? More options in other aspects of your life. Right? If I let you guys start picking lunch, now you want to pick dinner. If I give you guys free dress one day, you want free dress 2 days. If you're good, congratulations, I didn't ask. So if I, as your parents, allow you to have no curfew on Friday night, why do you want a curfew on Saturday night? Now all of a sudden you're out till 2 a.m. on Tuesday. Sleeping in an 8-push, like Christoph likes to try to do. So, no, I'm too loud for that. Today's not the day to sleep. And then you will be dangling over the pit of hell in the hands of Winchell. Just dangling. Like a thread. Don't flinch. So what this does, though, is it allows people the idea of options. They can pursue the type of church they want to pursue, and that will then lead to them questioning authority elsewhere. Great Awakening is also the first shared experience in the colonies. It's an important term. It's the first thing that happens to the colonies that doesn't just happen to New York or Pennsylvania, but it happens across the colonies. This threatens the established churches. It happens more so on the frontier, giving people options for religion, and it allows for this beginning of a unique colonial identity that is different than just what they had in England. Yes, sir?
So are Whitfield and Edwards based in one place, or do they?
They're traveling preachers. So they're going town to town to town, right? And it also shows the importance of transatlantic exchanges, as does the Enlightenment, of ideas that kind of start in Europe, transferring over to America and being experienced in an American way. Great question. Yeah, they're traveling. It largely starts in like the upstate New York and the frontier of New England, and then it spreads downwards. Great question. I should have been more clear. Thank you. So that's the Great Awakening. I hope my excitement and my loud voice did it justice. All right, Josue now is repenting to the Apush gods. You have to humble yourself, sir, for the gods of Apush. It's just me. So the Enlightenment is completely opposite, but it's going to have very similar results. And let me explain to you why. Now, in theory, you guys learned the Enlightenment well last year because Mr. Montes did his job. But again, like much of science, that's just theory, not fact. So, a good phrase for Enlightenment is this idea of intellectual ferment, or growth of thought. Growth of ideas, growth of new ways of thinking, growth of new concepts. It's impossible to put a date on a movement. When does the Civil Rights Movement start? When does the Civil Rights Movement end? Has the Civil Rights Movement ended? My point is, with movements, you can't put a start date and a stop date on it. So it begins in Europe in the 17th century. It is another example of one of College Board's favorite terms, transatlantic exchanges. Because it's an idea that came across the Atlantic Ocean, transatlantic. So just say for you know whats and giggles, you see an essay question from College Board that asks you, identify the impact of transatlantic exchanges on the development of colonial identity and thought. You're like, oh my God, that sounds really terrifying. Transatlantic exchanges, things that come across the Atlantic. Mercantilism, Great Awakening, Enlightenment, democracy. Boom, 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 done. So the more you know, you're going to learn those College Board phrases. So the idea here is we're gonna apply science and reason to politics and religion. We're going to start solving problems instead of just relying on, well, that's the way things work. Let me ask you something. If I drop this marker, Brenda, what's going to happen? Brenda, louder. Are you sure? Are you positive if I drop this marker, it's going to fall? Are you sure? Why? Because what? You've seen it before. Okay, that's reasonable. Brett, why is it gonna fall? Because gravity. But who created gravity? Why is gravity gravity? Here, let's try it. Now, why gravity? Because this is the question. If we just assume that gravity exists because gravity, we're not actually thinking. We're just taking gravity's word for it. We're taking our teacher's word for it. We're taking, at the time, the church's word for it. Why does this fall in the 16th century? Because God said so. God made it fall.
Gravity did.
Prove me wrong.
Gravity.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Gravity did.
Yeah, but God made gravity. Next question.
Oh. Okay, who made God?
God made God.
No.
In the beginning there was God. Genesis 1 says so. Sure. I don't know.
He came out of nowhere.
So, eyes back up. Why does the pen fall? Because God said so. Why does the entire galaxy revolve around the Earth? Because God said so. Why is the Earth flat? Because God said so. Why is the king king? Because God said so. Let me run that back. Why does the pen fall? Because God said so. Why does the entire universe revolve around our Earth? Because we're the center of the universe? Because God said so. Why does the sun revolve around the Earth? Because God said so. Why is the king the king? Because of divine right. God said so. So my point is, I want to teach you because I'm qualified to be here. Are you? So the question becomes, once we, you guys all told me about Newton and gravity. Once we question God's legitimacy in this conversation, shouldn't we then also question God's legitimacy in other conversations?
Yes, we should.
So then why is the king the king?
God says so.
But we just questioned the fact that we just proved the fact that God had nothing to do with the marker falling, and that we're actually not the center of the universe, and the earth is not flat, and we're revolving around it. So the domino effect of starting to prove things with science is just as contagious as the idea of giving people choices in church. Once you start questioning one aspect of it, it's going to transcend other things as well. That's the Enlightenment. This questioning of authority. So it's going to emphasize moral philosophy over theology, which is like the study of God. And the names for the American Enlightenment you should know are Ben Franklin, who I already mentioned, for his role in science. He's the one out here flying kites, finding electricity, trying to discover early flight, and also his role in politics. Thomas Jefferson, who's going to use all these Enlightenment ideals to impact, and we'll get there in period 3, the development of American democracy with the Enlightenment. And Benjamin Rush, the first real American doctor using science as opposed to like witchcraft, voodoo, and just feeding people heroin when they're sick because, you know, at least they feel bad. Not wrong. So, big picture, It's important to understand the correlation between once you try to start solving problems around you, and the answer is not because God said so, that inevitably, eventually, we'll get to politics, Desiree. And we'll have the exact same question of it can't be because God said so. That's the big point. Is I'm not here bashing God by any means. But if we stop believing that God made the marker fall, then eventually we have to question if God made the king the king. And once we no longer believe in this divine right, the king's a king because God said so, then why don't we get a say in the government? So there's this belief that God gave the king the right, and the king rules the people. Which implies the people are there to serve the king, and the king is there to serve God. But what if we take that out of the equation? The king's just there. And then we see the idea of the people giving their right to govern to the government. And then therefore, by the very nature of what's happening, the government serving the people. We can get into a whole discussion now if you want about the idea of government serving the people in our current politics. We can do it later if you'd like. That's a good conversation for a Thursday afternoon. But once this equation changes, once that's out of the equation, thanks Enlightenment, the whole calculus changes in terms of what the government's there to do. So some of the important ideas that come out of the Enlightenment, you're going to read about them in a moment, but you should know them. Come from Locke, Montesquieu, and Voltaire. It's nice that just for today, for the first time, you'll learn something from somebody whose last name starts with Montes. But Locke gives us, and we'll read in a second, life, liberty, property. That everybody has natural rights, Alex. And everybody has the right to have those natural rights protected. And that's where the government comes in. Montesquieu is going to argue we should separate powers to keep the government from becoming too correct. And Voltaire is going to give us the idea that the government should protect our right to express ourselves. Whether that's religiously, in writing, freedom of press, in spoken word, freedom of speech, etc. So these Enlightenment ideas all come from the beginning of questioning of authority of what if that's not there and government should serve some other purpose. Good. So you could already have answered the second question, but I'm going to have you jump into Locke's text. I'm going to have you read. I'm going to give you 4.5 minutes. I don't need you close reading John Locke, because this is not a political philosophy class. My AP Gov kids close read John Locke. What I need you doing in the next 4.5 minutes is skimming John Locke to tell me what are some of his big ideas and how might they apply to a development of American colonial identity and political philosophy. Okay? So just read it for big idea. Just 3 or 4 bullet points there in the margin, to the left in the column under his name. And then after the 4.5 minutes, I'll break down some of these questions that might come up. First period, really nice job of asking some good questions that allow for a good conversation. So 4:30, get reading and understanding, and we'll go from there. of some of his big political ideas that are going to impact colonial political thought. About 1 minute left. Click on that, and then what if that becomes the equation of how the government, it comes off that question. Okay? 20 seconds. How's your weekend? How's your weekend? All right, so let's talk about this for a second. What is kind of the big idea out of Locke? And then let's have a conversation about what that says for politics. No way? Is that your hand up? Too bad, your hand went up. So talk to me, what's Locke's big point?
Everyone is like trying to protect their life, liberty, and property.
Okay, sure. That everybody wants to protect their life, liberty, and property.
And that's the role of the government.
That's the role of the government, to protect that for me. Okay, that's a one-way street. What do I do in this conversation? The government's going to protect my rights. What am I going to do? Institute the government. Okay. What? Support the government? Sure. Sure. It says pretty clearly in the beginning of the third paragraph. If a man in the state of nature, if he is absolute lord of his own person and possessions, why will he give up his freedom? So let's talk about the state of nature. Now, all of a sudden, we live in the state of nature. Chaos. Can I kill Christoph?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Should I? Probably not. He's a nice guy, but you know. He doesn't move. He doesn't move very fast. He's already told me that. So you know, he doesn't. Can I steal Eli's lunch? Yeah. Sorry, Eli. My lunch. You ever heard of you ever seen Movie Friday?
Yeah.
My lunch. My grandma would give me that chain. My chain. Can I steal you water? Just did. What are you gonna do about it? Not a damn thing. So that's the state of nature. The argument Locke makes is we are going to give up some of our liberties. I'm going to agree not to kill Christoph. We're good. He's going to agree not to kill me. Can we make that agreement? You're going to agree not to kill me. I'm going to agree not to kill you. We'll pull there.
You kill me.
Okay. I'm going to agree not to steal Eli's lunch. Eli's not going to steal my lunch. So we're going to give away some of our freedoms so that the government can protect the rest of them. This is called the social contract. That I'm going to give up some of my liberties to the government because, as Brett pointed out, I instituted that government. Because I helped pick that government, I have no problem giving them some of my freedoms in exchange for protection. Sure, a better word for it. It's an O word. I'm going to give them some of my liberties in exchange for the protection of order. I'm going to give them some of my protection in exchange for societal order. Question. Could my car go faster than 65 miles an hour? Yeah. Yeah. But in general, I agree that I'm going to give up the liberty to drive 120 so that all of society can have more order. If my neighbor pisses me off, I can call the police. Not that I've ever done that, because usually I'm the neighbor pissing people off. Instead of going over next door with a shotgun and putting a 12 gauge in his head, right? Order. More, I don't have a gun, but I have a dog. It's big. So the idea here, though, is this social contract idea that you'll get more into next year. But the government's going to protect my rights, but not for nothing. I want to give up some of my freedoms as well, because it's the government that I picked, and we'll go from there. Good job. All right, jump to Montesquieu. He's going to explain separation of powers to you and why it's important. I'm going to give you 3:30 or so, and you're going to do the same thing. In the margin, Montesquieu, exactly. Montesquieu. That's right. That could be our new 8 slogan of the year. Montesquieu, Montesquieu. All right, 3:30. Read it. Do the same thing. Identify his big ideas on political philosophy, and then we're going to wrap up from there. Go. What are the big ideas from Montesquieu and how do they apply to American political thought? You're reading on your own. I love that you guys want to talk, but I also need you to read on your own. Seconds left. Even if like you create groups, like what's democratic, but so you just have one group doing it, there's some check. Yeah, good job. Good job. Excited to replay video of my lecture 15. Flawlessly kick that. Nice read. Did you get your quotations in front? 30 seconds. Big ideas. Let's talk about Montesquieu. Kat, I heard some good stuff from you. What did you pull out of that text that's significant politically for what we do?
They broke down government in 3 branches.
Okay.
that we use kind of today.
Sure.
Executive, legislative, and judicial.
Good. So Montesquieu's arguing that whoever has power can't have all the power. However it is you do it, and again, this is just philosophical from the get-go, that however you break up power, you can't leave all your power in one person's hands or one group's hands. And this will play a really big role going forward. The first U.S. government, to just give you a little foreshadowing, it's called the Articles of Confederation. And it basically is just that. It's a whole legislative body, but nothing else. There's no executive, no judiciary, and then you run into some of the same problems you'd have if it's just a king was in charge. Still just one group. Good. Why does he point out that you have to separate power, Brett?
Because if one group, or it says if the same person or same body of magistrates have all the power, or the power is united in the same person of magistrates, there can be no liberty.
Yeah, good.
Because you're giving them too much control.
Yeah, that you're giving too much control to one group or one person or one branch, and that there's nothing to protect or check that power. Yeah, what's up? We're not talking about local politics. This is just theory, dude. This is like a political thought. It will become much more broken down from that point forward. So, concluding, 2 very different movements, what do they have in common? Mr. Santos, what is the similarity in this religious and political movement?
Right, one similarity is that they both sort of target the authority of already existing figures.
Ooh, I like that. I think they both kind of target the existing authority. Yeah, go ahead. Good job.
I was going to say that they both are talking about how to benefit people, how the government is supposed to benefit people.
Okay, they both get to the church should benefit people and politics should benefit people. I dig that. I dig that. Jahira, what else do they have in common?
This idea of protecting the life and liberty of the subject.
That's what the Great Awakening does that too?
Oh, shoot. I thought you were talking about.
No, the Enlightenment, the big picture now. Whatever. So big picture, they're both about individualism. People making their own decisions, deciding for yourself. As Mr. Santos said, questioning established authority. So while one is thought and science as opposed to religion, both play a huge role in individualism, in making your own decisions, making your own actions. Good. Now let's fill this out. I'll let you write a thesis statement, and we're good to go for the day. On the board. It'll look just like that on yours. Talk to me. Type of movements. Daniel, what type of movement is the Enlightenment?
I don't know how to describe it.
Okay. Hilda, what type of movement is the Enlightenment?
More like scientific and like.
Scientific and social, sure, kind of. Political, eventually. Scientific. How about intellectual? It's an intellectual movement. That's the big key here. Brenda, what type of movement is the Great Awakening? Religious. Good. There you go. A religious awakening. Yeah, it's reasonable. What's that? I did. U-O-U-S. Leaders of the Enlightenment. Talk to me. Give me some. Araceli, give me an Enlightenment individual we should know. We just read 2 of them. Locke. Montesquieu. Voltaire. How about the American Enlightenment? Franklin. Yeah, good. Jefferson. TJ.
Rush.
Yeah, Benjamin Rush. Good. No, not Bush. Not Enlightenment figure. Leaders here?
Jonathan.
Edwards and
Whitfield.
Edwards and Whitfield. Good. Locke, Montesquieu, Voltaire, Franklin, T.J. Rush. Ideas. What are some of the big picture Enlightenment ideas? Give me one, please, Caesar. Enlightenment ideas.
Freedom of speech.
Sure, freedoms. Why don't I just put expression? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because that kind of hits all the ways we express ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, Josue has the freedom to express himself through dance. He does interpretive dance all the time. Yeah, with the ribbons.
Make fun.
What else? Talk to me, please, Jonathan. Other Enlightenment ideas that come out of this movement.
God doesn't control everything.
Okay. Democracy exists before the Enlightenment, though, right? Like ancient Greek and Roman democracy before the Enlightenment. Yes. Yeah, we can talk about separation of church and state. That's fine. How about consent of the governed? Natural rights. Natural rights. Consent of the government, meaning consent meaning permission. Do we give permission to be governed by giving up some rights in exchange for protection? Consent of the governed. That's important. Good. Other stuff? Separation of powers. That should be up here. Good. I dig that. Anything else you guys have a pressing desire to put up in this box? All right, over here, ideas for the Great Awakening. Brett, talk to me.
Like what?
Hey, what are some big ideas for the Great Awakening?
Separating. Wait, I'm confused. What am I doing?
Good question. What are you doing?
Ideas of the
Cat.
Great Awakening.
Yeah, new
New types of church.
new ways of God. How about that? Revivalism. Cool. What other ideas, though? What's it? Evangelism. So really making an effort to spread your religion. What kind of? Go ahead.
Making religion more attractive to people.
Okay.
Individualistic.
Yes, it is personal. This is the big one, guys. Personal salvation. You can save yourself. It's your relationship with God. Personal salvation. So both the scary one and the friendly one, they both put the emphasis on you to do it for yourself. Good. Actions, we'll get into these later, but the English Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Bill of Rights, the creation of modern democracy, and then here, actions, new colleges, new churches, all of that fun stuff. What I will do now is I'll project it for you as you finish up. Shoulder. If you missed anything. And the big similarity is both ask you to challenge authority and think for yourself. Both ask you to challenge authority and think for yourself. Yes, sir.
Wait, if Edwards and Whitefield were like evangelists, why, how did people receive them? If they were kind of, they were preaching individualism, but they were still saying Edwards was more of the negative and Whitefield's more positive. So people just, how would they receive them if
they're the first real American celebrities. That people are flocking in numbers of the thousands to watch them preach outdoors. So the established churches, especially in the South, where religion's already more traditional in Church of Englandish, doesn't like this idea. Because they're being questioned and challenged by this new ideas of thinking, but they're very, very popular. Because they're providing a new, more modern twist on religion. Great question. So take a minute, please, and respond to that prompt. Because there's a really good piece there about the idea of questioning authority and making your own decisions that come out of that. I'll give you the 2, and then I'll show you a couple resources to study from. I'll pass out your timeline, and we still have about 10 minutes. So take your 2 minutes to respond to the prompt, please. Respond, please. I need a response in your thesis area. I passed out study guys on Thursday after school. Cherokee, it stopped.